Hey gents, as Professor Galloway called it last week, we are nearing the Amazon singularity, which there's moves that retailers are making in order to fight off this impending doom, and that's what we'll talk about today. I'll briefly talk about Amazon, but what we're going to deep dive into is the private label and the ways that department stores are starting to fight off and hedge their bets against the impending Amazon Death Star. As we jump in, make sure you subscribe to learn about the best menswear on the internet, and then also for these higher level retail views, and then give a thumbs up for my Wednesday videos when I do talk about this stuff. So to set the stage, do you know why most places cannot fight McDonald's on price? Well, McDonald's does not make their money off of fast food and food products. They make their money off of real estate and land. They're a real estate company and a supply chain company, which is how they drive costs down and they keep the qualities down. But that's the reason that they've had so much success in the fast food space, is that people might compete with them to try and make better food, but McDonald's doesn't care. They're making their money off of other things. Amazon has set the stage that they do not need to make money at all, let alone in certain industries. So they can dump a bunch of money into movies and film, make their money back off of paper towels. They can dump a bunch of money into the retail space and then make their money off of Amazon Web Services. And so they don't need to go into every industry and make money, but they can walk in like a toddler with a hatchet and just start chopping away at company value. Except in this case, it's not a toddler, it's a master's degree in supply chain and business, and it's not a hatchet, it's a gas-powered nitro buzzsaw. Case in point, Amazon. So here's a snapshot of Amazon's market cap compared to the largest retailers that are trying to compete against Amazon. And this is showing how Amazon's revenue growth just since 2010 has eclipsed the sum total revenues of Nordstrom, Macy's, and Sears. And wait, 22 billion? Can you check on that? 22 billion done by Sears? Oh my God, what? So just to keep this in perspective though, this is Amazon as a whole, so it does include their technology group, the Amazon Web Services, and their ancillary businesses. It's not just retail, but they're making their moves hugely into the fashion space. There's a Charlie Rose interview with Jeff Bezos from 2010, where Charlie Rose is like, hey, what are you guys gonna do next? Why don't you give me all your secrets? And Jeff Bezos is like, no, dude. But there is this part where he says, you know, I think you'd be surprised that we're making big moves into fashion and apparel. And basically Amazon has ninja'd their way into being the biggest retailer of apparel in the US since that time. And it seems like companies, and even myself, are only waking up to this fact this year. Now, Amazon has nearly a dozen brands in the fashion apparel space. I'd also point you at that Amazon video I did last week where I talk about how they're making moves to come into Nike, Under Armour, and Lululemon's market, and Adidas, Puma. All of these companies are moving into sportswear, so I'd point you at that video if you want some more background on how Amazon is making moves into fashion. So that video is much more Amazon focused, so today I want to talk about the private label business in some of these giant, slow moving ships that are traditional retailers. Let's just take a step back and talk about department stores in general. In 2017, they're already a shell of their former selves. If you look at Sears, Kmart, Kohl's, JCPenney, even if you look at some of the historical ones like Lazarus, Kaufmann's, your parents will know those ones. They were also very safe businesses because in order for competitors to start up, you had to have a lot of capital. And then even then, if you open up a store that was supposed to compete against the Macy's, Macy's had such power they could undercut your prices and then put you out of business pretty quickly. So they had a very good moat. And these are just some of the national ones too. You could also apply this to the companies like Boscov's, Beal's, Stage Stores, Bon-Ton, Belk, Dillard's, Saks Fifth Avenue. But the thing with those companies is that they're all trying to appeal to the largest, widest audience, and then also have the largest, widest selection, because that was really the only place that you could get that type of selection in those days. So they weren't only just stocking the home and the kitchen, but then also the fashion and apparel side of things. They also employed a huge number of people, not just at the corporate level. There was a lot of people that had very good paying jobs at the corporate level of these stores like Macy's, but then they also employed huge numbers of people with decent paying jobs. And the internet wasn't a complete blind spot to these people. They were putting up websites and making investments in those places, but when you're making a ton of your money in the stores, unless you have a bald, hard-driving, innovative guy at the helm to then divert resources over into this new fledgling business, which may or may not take off, that's where it becomes really hard to justify and say that the CEO screwed up because he didn't see the internet coming, but that's where we are today. So when the department stores were competing against each other, why would I choose to go to Sears over JCPenney or Macy's? Well, because I wanted to go get Land's End clothing or whatever the proprietary and exclusive brand was to each of the stores. So people that loved Land's End clothing just went to Sears for Land's End clothing. They probably bought some other stuff because they were already in the store, and Land's End has now been sold off and everything else, but at the time it was considered the private label of Sears, and that's what we're talking about today. Private label products are just products that are done at a mass scale and then they're branded for a particular company. Trader Joe's is notorious for this. Almost all of the products in a Trader Joe's store are the Trader Joe's brand, but really they're just done by another manufacturer with a different bag. The best example of this that I think of is the Trader Joe's pita chips are really just Stacy's pita chips done by the Pepsi company, and then they're rebranded for the Trader Joe's. And now I'm talking about food. I'm off on diversion here. All right, you're Pete Nordstrom. You are the president and the namesake of your family's brand. You live in Seattle, where Nordstrom is headquartered, and your neighbor over here has been building out his house, and he just keeps putting bricks in your own yard, and he's just expanding. This is a bad metaphor, but it's almost true. Okay, so you're still Pete Nordstrom, and you have very loyal customers because you've been able to offer great service within your stores for many years and a great assortment. But there is a large swath of your customers that are a little more price sensitive, and they're more willing to go out and get their clothes either from another store, and in particular, in this case, it could be Amazon. How do you try and keep those customers and bring them back into the fold? You continue to offer great services in your Nordstrom cafes and have a really holistic customer experience, but also you start to look at your house brands or your private label. The 1901 brand or the Nordstrom clothing line or the Caliber line, which are all the men's stuff, are perfect examples of private label or house brands for Nordstrom. At any of these stores like Nordstrom, Target, JCPenney, Kohl's, Macy's, the private label clothes are usually of similar or close quality to the national brands that they carry. They just don't have the same brand recognition, but because the stores control the entire supply chain, they're able to make more margin on the clothes, which is a bonus for the retailer. But more importantly, it's exclusive to the companies that manufacture and carry those brands. In this case, we're talking about the 1901 brand. You can only get it from Nordstrom. If you listen to the earnings calls of these companies, they're talking about their competitive moats. So Target, Nordstrom, JCPenney, Kohl's, they're talking about product differentiation and customer loyalty. Product differentiation is that private label group. With JCPenney, it's St. John's Bay or Arizona jeans. With Macy's, it's the exclusive line of Polo Ralph Lauren, the Ryan Seacrest collection, and Alfani. Target over the next year is launching 12 new private label brands. They've already done the Up and Up brands for many years, and the packaged goods, which are your toilet paper and your paper towels and everything else. But the idea behind the product like Goodfellow, which has launched recently, and I've seen good reviews about them, is that if you like the Goodfellow brand, you continue to shop those. When you go get your Goodfellow products, you also go in and pick up some paper towels, which is going to prevent you from getting your subscription from Amazon, which is what I do right now. So what does this all mean? Well, Amazon is coming for fashion and retail in a big, big way, and these companies need to differentiate their product in order to stay alive. The challenge that these companies have is they're not competing against another company that has the same business model. They're competing against a platform, which is Amazon. Now, I did that watch video a few months ago where I talked about I could just spin up and manufacture watches on the fly, which is one of the competitive advantages that Amazon has. But just like that, I could start developing sweaters and selling them on Amazon tomorrow. It increases the value of Amazon because they have another shopper on their site. I become an entrepreneur, but then that also takes away some of the revenue from Nordstrom because they no longer have this big retail, capital-intensive competitive moat. I can just spin up a store and start carving out my niche as quickly as Nordstrom would have in the early 1900s. Amazon is a platform. They just want to take a cut of the transactions happening on the internet. Nordstrom and these traditional retailers need you to come into their stores, spend time and money in their stores in order for them to make money. And so that is a very, very scary thing to think about. So it is a very interesting time, gents. We're also entering into the long tail of retail brands, which is what I like to cover on the channel, which are these smaller ones that are popping up. Let me know some of the brands that you love from the retailers that I might need to try out. And I'll put up a link to my brand tracker down below so I can make sure I'm getting all of the ones that you guys want me to take a look at over time, because I do like to evaluate these companies on 5 key points: quality, fit, style, price, and overall value. Last time I did a video on Amazon fashion, you guys said you don't really shop on Amazon for fashion. I wonder if any of that has changed or if there are some of you guys out there that do. I'm very curious. Almost all of the pouch underwear that I reviewed is already sold on Amazon, which I found pretty interesting because most of the companies that I review have their own store. Needless to say, as all these companies battle it out, we are the winners because they're competing for our dollars, and it's just really cool to have ringside seats to this huge shift in the retail industry. And I love talking about it. I love covering it from the unboxings and everything else. Until next time, gents, this is the Kavalier.